Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's on tap this week on Out of the Gate, presented by Keeneland. Matt Bernier, Mike Beer and I will handicap the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley Stakes from Keeneland, as well as the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes for 3-year-olds on the main track. We'll also talk about the Grade 1 $1 million Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn Park, featuring 2-year-old champion Classic Empire. The Timeform U.S. Spotlight, well, Craig Mikowski will join us to discuss the Bentley Stakes at Keeneland. Nicole Russo's pedigree picks will focus on a couple of races on the Jenny Wiley and Lexington Stakes undercard, and Kinchin's Corner will discuss the guaranteed all-stakes pick 4 at Keeneland. Let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our hot topic, and we bring in our in-studio handicappers, Matt Bernier and Mike Beer. And gentlemen, when Unique Bella went down with a little bit of an injury, which puts her status for the Kentucky Oaks seriously in jeopardy, we thought, oh boy, this 3-year-old filly division, what a blow, how will it ever recover? And then we saw this last week from a potential superstar in the Santa Anita Oaks. This is Paradise Woods dominating a field.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. Maybe I'm getting a little bit caught up in the moment, and this is the most recent thing that I've seen, and I just think it's the best and greatest. But tell me that this is not an impressive performance. She puts the boots to a field that you've got some legitimate quality in there. And for me, the best part is the way she finishes. I know she was out on a pretty cushy lead, but she buried that field.
Mike, it didn't look like she took a deep breath at all. She earned a whopping 107 Beyer speed figure. And just consider, this was only start number 3. She was stretching out off a 5.5 furlong maiden win, right, and she beat a legitimate horse in Abel Tasman.
Yeah, she didn't just beat Abel Tasman. Abel Tasman never got into the picture in that race. The best thing about that performance to me, you know, obviously came back with a big figure, but she just had such easy speed getting out to the lead there. She had that whole field, you know, working hard through the second turn. You could tell the race was over, and then, as Matt said, she finished it off really well. I even, you know, would go back to her debut and take a look at that race, because she was not a horse before last era that I was familiar with at all. I didn't even know she existed, and went back and watched her maiden win after that big win in the Oaks. She was unbelievable, winning, breaking her maiden at 5.5 too. This is a serious talent, this filly.
Matt, in handicapping the Santa Anita Oaks, we went back to that second lifetime start at 5.5 furlongs, and we were very impressed with what we saw, how she relaxed like a true professional in behind horses, eased out at the top of the stretch, and then when pointed in the right direction by Flavian Pratt, she was gone. How good can this filly be? You can make the argument that off this race alone, even with some very good 3-year-old fillies in this division, she's automatically the favorite.
I think that was the most impressive thing, is that, like you say, in that run prior to Santa Anita Oaks when she broke her maiden, I wouldn't have faulted her if she kind of threw a bit of a fit, you know, sitting off of horses, maybe in a little bit tight, uncomfortable. You also look at that pedigree, Union Rags on top. 5.5 was just getting the engine cooking a little bit, and you saw the way she finished in the Santa Anita Oaks. It's going to be fascinating. I talked to a couple different people about the Kentucky Oaks and favoritism, where it'll ultimately land. I think she's going to be one of the choices, and I thought she would take more money than other people apparently do, and I'm hopeful that they're right, because I'm fine with 2-1, and it sounds like maybe some other people think she's going to be higher than that.
She's shown a great amount of versatility, sitting off the pace in that maiden win and then going right to the front when stretched out in the Santa Anita Oaks. Mike, let's compare her now to Unique Bella, who is just sensational and was supposed to be the heir apparent to Songbird after winning her most recent start, the Santa Isabel. Yet another sparkling performance. Here's Unique Bella cruising into the stretch. She was a little bit headstrong in this race. She wanted to go in her first start at 1 mile and a 16th. She faces a strong challenge from Abel Tasman, but she puts her away comfortably.
Yeah, I think she really asserted her superiority to that filly in this race, because you're right, she was a little bit hard to settle early in the race, which wasn't anything that I think you like to see with a filly of her talent, but she eventually settled. She went on with it. She was way the best in this race again. I mean, it's kind of a shame right now that she's not going to be around, at least in the short term, to take on Paradise Woods, because that's a very interesting matchup. Who's better than who? I don't know. I'm sort of siding with Matt on this one, though. I wanted to just take the most recent race, and maybe just because it's the freshest one, but that race that Paradise Woods ran last weekend, that was something else.
Grade 1 win, check for Paradise Woods. Unique Bella, 2-time Grade 2 winner, 1-time Grade 3 winner. Triple-digit Beyer speed figure, check. Paradise Woods, 107. Unique Bella, no slouch, 97.99 in her last 2 races. Matt, who's better?
I think it's Paradise Woods, and I think for me a lot of it has to do with what we've seen from Unique Bella. She's brilliantly talented, nobody's going to argue that, but she's still learning and she still pulls a little bit, and I almost wonder if that ultimately at some point would be her undoing. Whereas Paradise Woods, it looks like you can do whatever you want with her. If Pratt wants to send her to the front, she'll go. If she wants to sit, not a problem. She's not going to throw a fit. You know, Dan, you and I kind of joked about it in a text, and we're not comparing her to her. But you've got Richard Mandela as the trainer, and she kind of looked like a little beholder.
Certainly did on the backstretch when she was cruising out there on the lead. It's a very interesting comparison to Paradise Woods. She's got a long way to go, though, to match future first ballot Hall of Famer Beholder. Who's better? I have no idea. They're both very good.
We'll find out
I'd
on the track.
love to see Unique Bella down the road against Paradise Woods. Let's hope Unique Bella heals up for Hollendorfer, and we'll see her over the summer. And perhaps a tantalizing matchup down the road with Paradise Woods. Now let's get to handicapping. Out of the Gate this week is presented by Keeneland, and we begin our handicapping and analysis with the Grade 1 Coolmore Jenny Wiley Stakes at 1 1/16 on the turf. Let's take a look at this stellar field, and remember, folks, for expanded stakes previews, our in-studio handicappers discuss every horse, break down every horse, pace, trainer, formulator fact, etc. Head on over to video.drf.com. All graded stakes this weekend up on the website. The Jenny Wiley is headed, Mike Beer, by Lady Eli, who's even money on the morning line. She is sensational.
Yeah, she really is. She's way the horse to beat here, even off the layoff for Chad Brown. It's nice to see her come back last year after, everything sort of went wrong after her 3-year-old season. They made it back to the races with her. She only got to the wire first in one of her 3 starts, but they're the three fastest races she's ever run on figures anyway. And, she showed that she could still really run last year. And if she comes back and she fires one of her good shots off the bench, this field's in a little bit of trouble.
Matt, she is immensely popular, and as we take a look at the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, that was a tough beat.
Yeah, because you know what, she tipped out at the top of the lane. She came on with a run and just got run down late by Frankie Dettori. But like Mike said, I mean, it was kind of a tough campaign for her. In only 3 races, the fact that she only got 1 victory out of it and it was a Grade 1, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go crying about it, but consider the fact that in her lifetime, she's maybe a length away from being unbeaten. All she does is go out and win races and run really, really impressive races. I do have some questions here. I'm not denying that she's the horse to beat, but I feel like a little bit longer is better for her. I think she really wants 9 and 10 furlongs.
And she will have to deal with a layoff in a very strong field against some fillies and mares with more recency. You guys are going to try to beat Lady Eli. Matt, let's begin with you. You and I are huge fans of Grade 1 winner Illuminant, and it was wonderful to see her get back on the beam right off the bench going down the hill in the Wishing Well.
Particularly because 6.5 down the hill is not really what her game is. Her best game is between 1 mile and 1 mile and 1/8 on turf, but going down the hill in the Wishing Well, I thought all things considered she had a beautiful trip, but she really ran in there, and you had a couple of pretty good downhill turf sprinters in Prize Exhibit as well as Miss Double Doro chasing her home. It felt like the perfect prep for a race like this, a position where at 1 1/16 she's going to be forward. I would imagine she presses catch a glimpse throughout. I'm hopeful that she just takes over this thing turning for home, and then she's going to have to deal with Lady Eli. If she's good enough, we'll find out, but I truly believe that this is a race that really kind of fits her perfectly.
8-1 on the morning line for Matt's top selection Illuminant, and as he pointed out, she could get a very nice trip tracking Catch a Glimpse in the early portion of this race. Mike, you're going to try to beat Lady Eli as well with a razor-sharp runner, Dickinson.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Dickinson. I think she's one of the horses in this race who has maybe a little bit more to prove than some of the others, but I like the fact that she's unlike some of the other horses in here, not off of a layoff. I like that she's in the midst of some recent racing for Kira McLaughlin and some really good recent racing. She's shown herself to be a really good turf horse, I think, since they switched her over. And I also like the fact that it just feels like she can get any kind of trip in a race, guys. I think that they should get forward with her in this race, but they don't have to. The race 2 starts back to Suwannee River, where I just thought she ran really, really well. She got herself sort of bottled up in traffic, but she was able to hold her position the entire way until it opened up. And then when it did open up, you see her just blast through on the rail. I love the way she quickened up in that race to win it. And they came back in her next start at Tampa. I know it wasn't the strongest field in the world, but that's a race where you can't make the lead. Isabella Sings in that field. You cannot make the lead. She settled just fine off the pace. quickened up once again in the stretch. I like the way that she did it. She can get forward in this race a little bit shorter. I think that helps her. I'm hoping she classes up here and she catches some of these horses at the right time off the layoff.
In any kind of multiple race scenario, I'm using both of these guys' horses. I think they're both major contenders. But I think if Lady Eli is ready off the layoff, she is way the most likely winner in this race. And most of my weight will be on Lady Eli. Let's hope she gets a clean trip. She's going to have to be sharp off the bench. Something tells me that Chad's going to have her ready to roll in the Grade 1 Jenny Wiley Stakes. We've got a lot of graded stakes action at Keeneland this weekend. And Timeform US's Craig Milkowski, he's got his spotlight horse in the Ben Ali.
Hi, I'm Craig Milkowski, and this is the Timeform US Spotlight for Out of the Gate. Today we're going to look at the Ben Ali Stakes at Keeneland. It's a Grade 3. For older males, two-turn route. And the first thing we want to talk about is the Timeform US Pace Projector. In this case, it's a pretty decisive edge to the number 6 Birdsong, who looks to be on a clear lead. And it's also in a race where there's not a lot of speed, as you can see by the label, that it favors horses on or near the early lead. There are a lot of times where races like this, there's no speed, and it can be kind of tough to figure out who's going to be up front. And even though we favor, who we think is going to be up front, we don't really know who it is. But in this case, Birdsong looks to be a horse with true speed. It's his first time going around 2 turns, and he shouldn't really have much trouble. Number 7, Conquest Enforcer, looks like the horse most likely to press him, but he's also a horse that's never been on dirt in his life, where he's been running on turf and synthetic, where the pace isn't quite as quick. So we don't project him to be able to give too much pressure to Birdsong up front. One of the things we like about Birdsong here is that his Timeform US speed figures just seem to be getting better and better every race, to where his last race he ran a 125 at Gulfstream Park, which is the second highest in the field, but should be pretty good here. He goes back to rider Brian Hernandez, who has ridden him in the past. Julian Leperoux is at Oaklawn on Saturday, who's ridden him the last few times, but the jockey shouldn't be an issue here. The next horse we want to look at in here is Scuba. Scuba is a horse who was on a bit of a tear. He's won his last 3 races, the final one coming in the marathon race. I believe it's a Las Vegas Marathon on Breeders' Cup weekend, a race which he won pretty easy. He comes into the race with the highest Timeform US speed figure in the race from his last race, a 127 in that marathon. And he's definitely going to be a horse that you'll have to deal with here in the stretch. He should have plenty of stamina, given that his last 3 wins, although they've been easy wins, they've all come at 1.5 miles long or longer, something we don't see in the States very often, a whole lot of those marathon races, but he's kind of a specialist. He's entering this race off somewhat of a layoff, as you can see by the blue layoff line in our past performances. And this looks to be more of a prep, probably getting him ready for races like the Brooklyn and such that are coming up that should be more to his liking. He might be able to get into it for a piece, but as a horse who will take some money, he's probably not well meant today and one I would avoid. The next horse we want to talk about is Eagle. And he's just a horse, he's always pretty popular at the windows. Bettors seem to gravitate towards him, although he did go off at 9-1 in his last start. But he's always one that takes some money, but he's a horse that just has no early speed whatsoever, and he just seems to find tough trips every time out. He did win this race last year with a Timeform US speed figure of 122, which is his lifetime best. And he seems a horse that's just not quite good enough to win a race of this caliber. He always seems to come up a little bit short. Like I said, he did win this race this year, so if you like him, that's a one angle you can probably tie your hat to, that he did run his best race at Keeneland in this very race, and maybe this was the goal. But and the other thing is, he's 3rd race off a long layoff. He was off for more than half a year. I think it was about 8 months, as you can see by the red line in our past performances. So he is, he's improved a little bit, and he seems to be working his way back to his best. But he's also a horse that's never run the 125s and the 127s that we've seen from the first 2 horses. So He's not one I'd be anxious to bet. I still think Birdsong is a horse to beat. Just a couple quick notes on the others in here. Blowfield draws the rail. He won the Gulfstream Park Handicap last year, and he hasn't won since. Missed the board in 5 starts. He's not in the best of form. There's some others. Watershed shown some ability, but he's never won a stakes race. I think he's 4 for 5 in non-stakes races and 0 for 8 in stakes races, with only a couple poor thirds in there. Conquest Enforcer, who we mentioned, tries dirt for the first time, and he could be competitive if he takes the dirt, but it doesn't seem like that would be his thing. The other 2 in here just look a little bit too slow to me. They've never even hit the 115 speed figure mark, or at least haven't at any time recently. So for this race, we're going to go with Birdsong as the most likely winner, and then Scuba and Eagle are the other contenders who definitely have some negatives. That's it for today. There'll be more out of the gate after these messages.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate, presented by Keeneland. Let's handicap race number 9, the Grade 3 Lexington Stakes at 1 mile and a 16 for 3-year-olds. And as we take a look at this field, not exactly a Kentucky Derby prep, but a prep that could be very interesting for a race like the Preakness. We also have horses with strong turf pedigrees. Maybe that's where their future ultimately lies. Remember, folks, expanded stakes previews of the Lexington all-graded stakes races this weekend over at video.drf.com. Let's bring in our in-studio handicappers. Matt, Bob Baffert, still got a couple of nice 3-year-olds and a very promising one on the outside in West Coast.
I have to be honest, I feel like this is a really uninteresting pick. But I think West Coast has a little bit of ability. He's only raced twice. He broke his maiden most recently. It's only a 3-horse field, so it's hard to get too excited about that. But his debut effort was really the one that kind of caught my eye. He ran into Bronze Age, who ultimately went out there and did his thing, but he wasn't all that spectacular in the Sunland Derby. This horse came on again at the end, though, West Coast, and I feel like additional distance is only going to be his friend. I wonder if this is just sort of a starting off point to get him moving forward. I think he's an interesting one down the road.
He'll likely be up close to the pace after being hustled from that outside post. Mike, your thoughts on West Coast?
Yeah, I agree with everything Matt said about him. His debut was the race that really did it for me. I like the way he tried through the stretch in a race that just got wired by one of his stablemates in there. I like that race from him. And I don't really want to try and judge him off the last race, Dan. Only 2 other horses in there. He won it. I thought he won it very easily. I don't really care that the figure's a little light considering how easy his trip was and there were only a couple horses in there. I think this horse is pretty good.
West Coast is my second choice in this race. I think he'll acquit himself quite well. I have a feeling he's going to take a lot of money in this spot. Mike, your horse, I believe, is 10-1 on the morning line. That's the late-running, long-striding Super Tappet.
Yeah, we're going to have to hope that he catches at least a little bit of pace to run into here, and I feel like this race should set up at least okay for him. I just like both of his. A lot like West Coast. This horse caught my eye on his debut. He got out of the gate very slowly, but I like the way that he caught up to the field, and then particularly like the way that he finished from the top of the stretch to the wire. The horse that he held off at the end was really running at the end of that race, but he dug in and held him off. Second start of his career. He's off slowly again. I just sort of feel like that race might be a little better than it looks, at least from my perspective. Not a big pace in that race. They never came back to him in the stretch, but he was trying pretty hard in that race. They were older horses as well. I think he fits pretty well in here. He just has to get out of the gate, and if he catches a little bit of pace in there, I think he'll come running at the end.
I'm going to give the number 4, No Dozing, one more shot for trainer Arnaud Arnaud Delacour, who won the Lexington a couple of years ago with Divining Rod after that horse bombed in a couple of races at Tampa Bay Downs. No Dozing hasn't run very well in his last 2 starts at Tampa Bay, but he was in against way tougher competition. I'm not even going to hold Tapwrit's Bluegrass against him. Tapwrit would be favored if he ran here in the Lexington, and I thought No Dozing was okay last time out. He was steadied a bit going into the first turn, tried to make a mid-move into a hot pace, and then finished evenly down towards the inside. This is his class drop. He ran well at Keeneland last year, and I think a very good trip is coming, because it appears that the 5 time to travel who's stretching out is going to show some speed. Matt's top selection, the number 10, West Coast, is going to show some speed. I'm hoping No Dozing and Joel Rosario can just tuck in behind those 2 horses and get ready to attack on the far turn. And maybe history repeats itself with No Dozing's trainer, Arnaud Delacour, in the Lexington. Lots of great undercard racing at Keeneland as well. Nicole Russo takes a look at 2 races on the undercard for her pedigree picks. Jonathan Kinchin in Kinchin's Corner is going to take a look at that guaranteed all-stakes pick 4. Let's go to those segments right now.
Hey guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington, getting ready for another big day at Keeneland on Saturday. A solid card that if you're a student of pedigree, you're going to have a lot of fun with. Of course, we've got Time in Motion and a salty addition from the Jenny Wiley from that outstanding Darby Dan family we've told you so much about. We'll see Finnegan, the talented half-brother to Bodemeister. We'll see good runners from the Judma and Phipps vaunted breeding programs and more. I'm going to give you 2 pedigree plays with some well-bred horses elsewhere on the card, starting right here in the opener. As we take a look at the field for race 1 for 3-year-old maidens, there are a couple of well-bred horses in this race who have faced some good company, including Insurgent. The son of Bernardini is going to appreciate this 9 furlongs in his 4th career start. He showed a lot of promise last year in Kentucky. He finished a good 3rd in his debut at Keeneland to J-Boy's Echo, who of course won the Gotham this spring and is on the Kentucky Derby Trail. Insurgent was 4th in a maiden last month at Fairgrounds. Probably needed that race coming back off a little bit of a winter break. I think he'll break his maiden sooner rather than later, especially because there's a lot of class in his pedigree. Let's take a look at sort of the tail of the tape for his dam, Dream Rush, who's just a terrific broodmare. She was a multiple Grade 1 winner in her own right, sprinting. She's passed that class on to her foals, and Bernardini in particular is going to add some stamina to her line. She's the dam of 3 stakes horses, most notably Dreaming of Julia. We'll watch her right here, this powerhouse performance that she turned in the Gulfstream Park Oaks a couple of years ago. Now, Dreaming of Julia is especially significant talking about Insurgent because she's by AP Indy, the sire of Bernardini. So it's a cross that works. Is Insurgent going to be a stakes horse? Who knows? Nobody can hit 100% like that, but I do think he's going to break his maiden sooner rather than later. And now let's take a quick look at the 3rd race here as we see the field, an allowance race for fillies and mares 4 years old and up. The one I'm looking at closely here is Curlin Kisses there on the inside. Now, she might need this race as she hasn't started since winning her debut in May 2016. She's been training strongly for her return, though. She fired a bullet at Churchill earlier in the week preparing for this. And we'll watch her here winning that debut, which came on the poly track at Woodbine. I do think that she'll handle this shift to dirt being by Curlin. And I do think that that sire also equips her for the added distance as she moves from 6 furlongs to 7 furlongs here. Curlin, of course, a proven young classic sire, and all of his best progeny have done their best work stretching out, including his classic winners. Well, that's all for this week. Good luck at Keeneland on Saturday. I'll be out there with colleagues Marty McGee and Byron King. You can follow all of us on Twitter. And for now, let's get over to Jonathan with Kinchin's Corner.
Hey everybody, welcome to Kinchin's Corner. We're back with another opportunity to try to make some money here. Last week we came up a little bit short. Hopefully I gave you guys some good ideas with Sailor's Valentine and you guys were able to cash a little bit with her 22-1 win in the Ashland. This week we're going to go right back to the All-Stakes Pick 4. It's going to start in the 7th in the Ben Ali. I guess it's the Ben Ali. Maybe it's the Ben Ali. Who knows? In that race, I feel like it's a pretty simple situation here. It's kind of one of those harmonies in racing where you have a negative opinion about every horse in the race except for one, and then that horse happens to have a pace advantage, and you think he's better than everyone else. It's an easy one to single. That single for me is Birdsong. If you look at the Time Form US pace projection, that horse should be loose on the lead. I think it's the best horse regardless of that situation. Easy single for me. We'll move on to the 8th race where you'll see another single. We'll take a look at a little bit of a tape from overseas. Royal Ascot, the same day that our beloved Tepin won. Take a look in the middle with the familiar Stone Street Silks and watch this 2-year-old filly open up against Europe's best 2-year-old turf sprinters and tell me that she's not one you're excited about a comeback. From all accounts, she's working well. I think she's something special. I'm excited about what we're going to get from her the rest of the year. And let's just watch the rest of this race in silence. Pretty special. I'm excited to get her back. Simple single from here. Simple single for here. We're going to start off with those two and hope that we're alive going into the Lexington. I really didn't have a strong opinion here in the Lexington. I'm going to use quite a bit of A horses and quite a bit of B horses. I'm going to use Super Tappet as an A, No Dozing, Time for Travel, Convict, Pike, and West Coast shipping out from the West Coast for Bob Baffert. I'm going to use a couple backup tickets with the 1 Resiliency and the 3 Senior Investment. Obviously, I don't have a lot to say about the race. I don't have much of an opinion. And that's why I've spread like I have, hoping to pick up some value there. And also the singles are going to kind of pick up some value for us along the way as well. In the last race, in the 10th, and the Jenny Wiley, I think Lady Eli is special. I think the race that we saw from her in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, which we're going to take a look at, proves that she's back off of all the ailments and the tough ride that she had following her 3-year-old year in which we almost lost Lady Eli. And the performance that she put down at Santa Anita shows me that she's still a racehorse. They've got no reason to bring her back. Her resume is solid enough that she's worth what she's going to be worth. And the idea that they bring her back is exciting to me, and I look forward to her to run well. Chad's horses have been running well at Keeneland. He had a winner on Thursday, and I would expect that Lady Eli will make that work for us as well. So if you take a look at the ticket, pretty straightforward. We got a $15 all-A combination, $3 A's with 1 B's, and $2 A's with 2 B's. If you have time, do 50-cent tickets and punch them multiple times. You'll appreciate that come next April. Good luck to you guys. We'll see you next week.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate, presented by Keeneland. It's now time for our DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day for Saturday, the Grade 1 $1 million Arkansas Derby. Let's take a look at this field of 3-year-olds from Oaklawn Park, race number 11. Head on over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com, download those free Formulator past performances, and handicap along with us. And again, for the expanded stakes previews, visit video.drf.com. Gentlemen, it is put up or shut up time for 2-year-old champion Classic Empire. Matt, he's had all kinds of problems this year.
Yeah, this has clearly not been what the connections had been hoping for as far as his 3-year-old campaign is concerned. His one race thus far has been just a tremendous dud. And really, you draw a line through that. You don't have a race for this horse since November. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to trust him at a short number. I think we can all agree that his best race buries this field. I have no idea if you're going to get his best race, and I threw something out to you guys earlier in the day. Maybe this is a little bit ridiculous, even saying this. I mean, is the Breeders' Cup actually the outlier, and that's not really what he is, and he's more of this mid-80, low-90 kind of horse? Because if that's the case, he didn't have any edge over this field.
I see what you're saying from a Beyer speed figures standpoint. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile, far and away, the best and fastest race of his career. But Mike, I think from when the other races, just from a visual standpoint, you take a look at it, you know this is a legitimate Grade 1 horse.
Yeah, I thought he was a really good 2-year-old, and it just sort of felt like the 102 in the Breeders' Cup is the number he was sort of building up to from his prior starts. I liked everything he did as a 2-year-old. I obviously don't care for what he's done so far as a 3-year-old. Who knows what you're going to get on Saturday? I think a lot of people are, if not expecting a good effort, they're at least hoping for one. Hoping for a good effort, not a great reason to take even money on a horse.
You have no idea if he's going to accept putting the saddle on him or even go out on the racetrack. He's that willful. He's the horse to beat. Perhaps he's not the horse to bet at a short price. Malagasy won the Rebel. He beat 5 of these common foes in the local prep for the Arkansas Derby. And we're going to take a look at Malagasy's race right now. I thought it was an inoffensive race, all things considering. It was his first time stretching out around 2 turns. He was chasing a solid enough pace. And he's on the lead here, and he's facing half-hearted challenges from horses to the outside. That's Untrapped, who's pretty much running the same race he ran in the Grade 2 Risen Star race, the race prior to the Rebel. I thought this was a solid enough performance for Malagasy, who may not be a superstar. But Mike, he's done nothing wrong in his career.
Yeah, right. I guess that's the best way to put it. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's been impressive in a couple of his races. I wasn't as impressed with that win that we just looked at as I was with his first two, but it's hard to deny that he was best in that race. This is just this kind of situation, especially if you feel like Classic Empire can't run. I guess he's the other logical horse. I just don't really want to bet on him.
Matt, how much does this outside post hurt Malagasy? Tough post to be sure.
Yeah, I think it certainly hurts him. I don't think it eliminates him completely, but Javier's going to need to get him out of there. Hopefully he breaks alertly, which really isn't a problem for him. And I think you've got to use a little bit of that early speed going into the first turn. Last thing you want to be is hung 5 or 6 wide, particularly with a horse like this, where there's still sort of the whispers. I know I have the questions about how far he ultimately wants to go. Last thing you want to do is give up ground on the first turn going 1 1/8. But again, like you guys made mention, if it's not Classic Empire, kind of by default, isn't it Malagasy?
We've talked about the 2 morning line favorites in this race. Now let's discuss some prices. Matt, looking at Lee from the clouds.
Maybe I'm just bashing my head against the wall, hoping that this horse turns into what I wanted him to turn into. But I think there is still something here. Steve Asmussen made it clear. He thinks of all of his 3-year-olds, this is the one that will appreciate the distance as it continues to get longer. He needs some pace, and he may not get it in a spot like this, but I'm almost at the point now where I just want him to come along at the end, try to get some points, try to get into the starting gate for the Kentucky Derby, and then anything can happen. You never know. But certainly, I wouldn't argue with anyone that just called him nothing more than a plotter, but I'm going to give him another shot.
Matt sticking with the 6, looking at Lee. Mike sticking with the horse that he's followed throughout this 3-year-old season. That's Silver Dust, regally bred, blinkers on.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. He's got to find a way to take a step forward, obviously. Maybe he can do it on Saturday. I like the way he's headed anyway. I don't know if this is maybe too much too soon for him, but I like him as a horse. I'm not betting Malagasy in this race at a short price. I'm not betting Classic Empire at a shorter price. I like, horses like Petrov and Untrapped. I think they're both pretty good, but call me when they turn back in distance. I like Matt's horse looking at Lee as well. I just don't like his running style. I'm going to hope Silver Dust can take a little step forward here. I think he's run okay in his first 2 stake starts. Now they're going to take one more shot with it, blinkers on. There's something there with this horse. He'll be a price in this race. I'll lose a couple dollars if he doesn't run well.
For me, this race is for entertainment purposes only. Malagasy beat 5 of these last time out. I think Javier's going to be aggressive with this horse coming out of the gate. He'll take up a stalking spot, and we'll find out A, how good he is, and B, how far he wants to go. Now time for our best bets of the weekend. Time for our best bet segments. We've scoured the cards over the weekend. Matt, nice pick last week in the best bet. You had the Commonwealth Awesome Slew from last to first to win. Let's make it 2 in a row, 3 out of the last 4.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed. Santa Anita race number 2 Saturday afternoon. Champagne Charlie. You've got Gary Stevens second off the bench for Simon Callahan. The most recent start, I'm not going to argue with anyone that says you had the dream trip and it just all happened to work out and the horse squeaked through and got the job done. I think another good trip is coming this time around. You've got enough speed in there, most notably with Kenji Storm. They're going to be going a mile. I don't think that's any sort of problem. Breaking from the far outside, I think Stevens gets the horse probably 2 or 3 lengths off the pace. Let things go. Let him loose turning for home. I don't know what you're going to get for a number because it is a pretty wide open race. He could be the favorite at 2 to 1. He might be 5 to 1. I'm not entirely sure, but Champagne Charlie, I feel pretty good about him.
Mike, let's move to New York, your neck of the woods.
Yeah, race 2 on Saturday. It's a New York bred maiden claimer on the grass. The number 8 horse in this race is Awesome Anthony. It's just one of those fields. There's just not a lot of turf form to go on. One of the horses who does have turf form, however, is Awesome Anthony, and that includes his most recent start on the turf, which was back last November on this turf course. He got crushed at the start of that race, right into a stumble, got outrun early, but he made a big wide run around the turn. He was still gaining at the end. That was against a field of much better horses than this. This is a great spot for this horse to switch back to the turf on. He's 5 to 1 on the morning line. That price is more than fair on Awesome Anthony in the second.
I'm going to go to Easter Sunday at Sunland Park with our DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day. Again, free Formulator Pass performances available on the Race of the Day event page. An old favorite is Neck and Neck. He's making his 3rd start of the form cycle in race number 9 for Steve Asmussen. And last time out, he was too close to the pace. The pace setter in that race went wrong on the backstretch. Neck and Neck had to be way too close to the pace. He's more of a one-run closer, and he is going to get some pace at Sunland. This is a horse, he's not the most prolific winner in the world, but I think he's found a nice spot. He's 5 to 1 on the morning line, same trainer and jockey combination that won the Sunland Derby with Henson. His best race now stretching out to 1 1/8 miles. I think this more distance is really what Neck and Neck wants. We thank you so much for watching this week's edition of Out of the Gate, and we thank Keeneland for presenting our Out of the Gate coverage. Best of luck this week when your horses break out of the gate.